So good afternoon, everybody. Thomas, thank you so much for taking time to speak with us this afternoon. I would like to thank EFMD for co-organizing this series of webinar with Academ by RIMA1. My name is Benjamin Stevelin. I'm the CEO of Academ. And in front of me, I have a great dean, Thomas Kleff from Fordsham University. So Thomas, if you could maybe introduce yourself in a few words.
Yeah, thank you, Benjamin. And first of all, hello to everybody. I've seen Isabel just saying hello in the chat. Yeah, welcome to everybody. Yeah, my name is Thomas. I'm from Germany, Fordsham University, from an accredited school, AACSB accredited school since 2011. I was involved, or I am involved since many years in international accreditation, first as a normal faculty member prior to our initial accreditation. I was part of some teams preparing initial accreditation. Then I came in as vice dean and a little bit later as a dean of the business school. Yeah, I'm a mentor for some schools at AACSB. I've been a member of the initial accreditation committee at AACSB, so those committee who is deciding for initial accreditation or sometimes or not, guiding schools through this process from eligibility to initial accreditation. Yeah, and I'm also the Secretary General of a network called NIPS, Network for International Business and Economic Schools. It's a network of international business schools working together, exchanging faculty and students.
Thank you. So maybe just to introduce the session briefly. So today it's again a discussion between Thomas and myself. So the opinion of Thomas. In no way it is the opinion of EFMD on how to involve and do things. Please feel free to use the chat, use the Q&A and ask us questions. We will be really happy to get as much involvement for the people in the audience as possible. The first question I would ask you, Thomas, and you are a particular example because you are a dean that is actually involved in the accreditation process, that know the accreditation process. So I think a lot of the people that are listening to us at the moment would like to have a guy like you in charge that actually know the process as well. But when you look at a lot of schools that are at the early stage or entering the accreditation process, accreditation is not seen as a quality process. It's seen more as a reward. And, you know, I want to get the reward of the accreditation. So the dean arrives to the school, is just going to pick one or two people in the school and say, look, this is for you. I come back in 5 years and I want to have the reward. So how do you manage, how do you talk to these people that tell you, look, my dean is not involved, he only see that as a reward? And I'm sure at many conferences you have talked to people that say, look, I don't know anything about our process. This person is in charge. So how do you talk to your peers, deans, when they mention that to you?
Yeah, I think there are several different types of deans. There are several deans like I am, so highly involved in accreditation. And I personally had this chance to learn and to be involved from the beginning on. I think you have to breathe the spirit of the standards, and you need to see the benefit of an accreditation if it comes to the strategic management of a business school and how standards can help you, can support you to run the school. But again, first of all, you have to understand the spirit of the standards. In many countries, you have the problem that indeed that you don't have a professional dean's system. A good example is Germany, for example. Some faculty is taking over the deanship for 2 years. Maybe he starts to prepare um, the process of accreditation, and after 2 years he hands over to someone else, and this person again has to be involved, has to learn the spirit of the standards, and yeah, for those people it's really difficult. And yeah, my advantage and the advantage of those who are aware about the spirit and the good things of the standards are those who are acting deans for a longer period of time. You see a lot of them, if you go to conferences, because they see the benefit of, or those deans who are there very often see the benefit of these standards. Then you have those who are indeed very new to the business, coming from a faculty position without no knowledge or without knowledge about international accreditation, etc. And their term is maybe too short to learn all these things, staying as interim deans, but sometimes they have the willingness to understand it and to at least to push it. And those deans, they need support by a good quality manager, and they need this strong and yes, let's say strong quality manager with a big amount of knowledge about international accreditation, because he or she can guide the dean through this process. The problem for this dean can be if this person leaves during the process of initial accreditation or re-accreditation. But I've seen some of these schools where you have great guys as a quality manager. They know everything about the standards, and if you have an open-minded dean, then it's fine. The most difficult type of dean is what you mentioned, Benjamin. These deans, please, here we want to have it. Have this time framework for the next 7 years. Please try to get as soon as possible eligibility, and 1 year later initial the ISER, and 1 year later initial accreditation committee, and accreditation after 3.5 years. This is probably the most difficult type of dean. Sometimes they are not interested in what's behind the standards, no interest in the spirit of the standards, no interest in how can I make use out of the standards to lead my institution. So no use of instruments and ideas of accreditation. And I would say sometimes this is not successful. And here you have probably the biggest potential of a conflict between a good quality manager as a dean and the dean, because a quality manager needs the support of the dean, needs someone who sells the spirit and the idea of the standards. And yeah, back to your question, dean, and at least one wise dean, maybe of research or student affairs, should have great knowledge to get benefit out of accreditation, and last but not least, to get accreditation.
You mentioned that some of the deans are in office for such a short time that it's too short for them to learn. What would be your advice to the people listening to us on how to actually push the knowledge to these people, because we're going to say, okay, the people that don't want to listen, we're not going to have them in the discussion today because they're lost cause. But for the people that are in and that are willing to listen, like as a dean, what would you be waiting to hear? Like what would be the tools that you would like to have to understand the accreditation process, to understand what benefit you're getting from them? Like, would you have some ideas of what would you, if you were in their shoes, be expecting?
Yeah, the question here is involving, or to involve the dean, the only thing you have to take care about. Maybe I can explain a little bit the story of our initial accreditation, because it was not a simple one. We were the first university of applied science in Germany receiving this AACSB accreditation. It was a tremendous change of culture within the business school. It was a tremendous change of processes and a tremendous change how to lead the school with strategic planning. You have to have a strategic plan, and you have to have a mission and a vision. This new spirit, this new culture doesn't fall from the sky. You have to work on that. And if you are alone as a dean, you're lost. And what we've done in our institution is we picked some young faculty members. We sent them to seminars to breathe the idea of AOL, to breathe the idea of the standards, to understand that you are not alone in the world, that many schools, successful schools and good schools, are following these ideas, and using this, let's say, young and engaged faculty to convince all the other ones, at least those who are neutral to accreditation, because accreditation in Germany is a very difficult field, because German national accreditation, it's let's say, had a very bad reputation, and the German deans already thinks about, oh, it's a sort of similar things, another paper producing institution, and they don't see the benefits you can have. And if you involve the first 30 to 40% young faculty to convince all the others, this is really helpful. And then it becomes much easier for a dean to convince faculty that this job as a quality, or the rule of a quality manager is a crucial and very important role within the business school. Now coming back to your question, what is the problem if you have someone where the quality manager has no direct link to a dean, where it's really difficult? Bring him or her to the dean's conference. Bring him or her to seminars, that this dean sees or get into networks to know other people who are who use these sort of international accreditation to progress, to perform better. So use this infrastructure of EFMD and AACSB.
Thomas, I'm going to ask you a question on the German sector, because as you mentioned, Germany is a bit different. You were the first technical university to actually enter and be accredited by AACSB. And so you were one really changing the way the sector was moving, because if you still look in Germany at the moment compared to other European countries like France or the UK, you don't have that many schools that are accredited. So the mentality, it's also a politics, because the national politics, the students were assigned to you depending of the region you were coming from. So you had reason for not going toward international accreditation. But if you had to convince one of your peers in Germany, a dean, to move toward international accreditation, what would you tell them?
Yeah, okay, there are many reasons. Normally, colleagues should feel that more and more international partners are reluctant in signing exchange agreements, in signing double degree or joint explain why do you think that you're good quality? So normally they should see it from the partners, from the international. Oh, there's a difficult. You can hear me?
Yeah, it was broken up, but now we hear you back.
Okay, yeah. So exchange partners. For if it comes to the German market of bachelor students, I would say German bachelor students, they don't really know what it is. Accreditation, is it important? Unless it's definitely less important than in France, where having or having not international accreditation plays a role for rankings or whatever. This is not the case in Germany. But if it comes to master programs, it's definitely one of the most often cited argument. Why do you choose Pforzheim, or why do you choose a master program? AACSB is in 80 to 90% the reason why choosing Pforzheim. So these are, yeah, the reasons market-wise, but there are other reasons, internal reasons why the whole process, the 7 years from eligibility to initial accreditation, is so important, because you are changing processes, you're changing. Or you try to have a sort of strategic planning derived from the mission and vision you have. And the funny thing is, if you ask many of the colleagues and you ask them a question, where do you want to be in 5 years? They sometimes don't really have good ideas or any ideas about that, because again, they are sometimes short-term acting deans. There is no strategic planning. We're teaching strategic planning for companies, our students, but universities in Germany, very often they have no strategic plan. So very important point, very helpful to progress and to solve problems. Yeah, having an eye on our main tasks, so teaching, assurance of learning, and research means, yeah, what's the quality of the output of your company, and what's, sorry, of your university, and what's the impact of what you are doing. These are crucial questions, and you have to give an answer to that. So very important, and I would say German national accreditation doesn't help here, not at all, and that's completely different for international accreditation, definitely.
Thank you. A question from the audience: should an accreditation project leader establish a coaching / mentoring structure with peers on the quality assurance and deans at dean's level? It may be easier to calibrate dean behavior that way.
Sorry, you were interrupted. Could you please repeat it again?
Sure. Yeah. Should an accreditation project leader establish a coaching/mentoring structure with peers on the quality assurance at dean's level? It may be easier to calibrate dean behavior that way.
Good question.
But I think the question here is related to the fact that the deans don't know the standards, and you have dozens of examples. And even if they go to the dean's conference, at the dean's conference, they're going to shake hands with their peers. But the dean's conference is not an accreditation conference where you're going to go deep into the standards and understand the basis. And you've not been to an XXL seminar of EQUIS or EPAS, so you don't know the standards. So would a mentoring / coaching in the institution of the dean could be something interesting?
Yeah, so that's I can talk a little bit about what I'm doing when I'm mentor in a school. The first thing is to bring in the dean, because he is the crucial person. You're right. Sometimes there is one designated, sometimes vice dean or quality manager. You are invited as a mentor, and they plan to let the dean say hello and goodbye, and that's all. The first thing I say is no. You are, as a dean, you have to be there, because you are the person who is guiding the whole process with the support of your quality manager or your vice dean or whatever. And I want to have you within all these slots when we talk about standard 1, standard 2, standard 3, so all these strategic things, when we talk about assurance of learning, when we talk about research output. So I would say that's an important role of the mentor, to bring in this this dean into the business, and to understand that the dean understands that he has to, let's say, he has to know the standards like everybody else, or even better than everybody else in the school.
Yeah, and he or she need to understand the impact of those standards on the strategy of the school, because he's the captain of the ship, so he needs to know where are those standards might take him.
Yeah. That's it, and that's why it's so important. Don't let the dean escape when you are mentoring a school. Plan with him. Maybe sometimes there are some time slots. If it comes to you have to convince again a little bit the faculty, sometimes then it's better not to have the dean in the room, but he or she has to understand the whole business of and the standards of accreditation. It makes the whole process better and probably shorter. You don't have to go through all these loops during the initial accreditation process.
But so in a way, you would advise the people to help to use the mentors, to use the accreditation staff, the liaison for EFMD or CSB or any accreditation, to push the message toward them, to say, look, my dean is not receptive to this message. Could you maybe just explain him or explain her this thing, because it might help us more getting the full benefit of the accreditation process.
Sometimes I already received an email from quality managers from other schools, partner institutions, saying, "Oh, I want you to bring you together with my dean. He is new in the business, or she is new in the business. Could you tell him a little bit about what your way through the standards, and tell him a little bit the benefit of that." So this might be also an opportunity to bring deans together and if you know some of them, sometimes quality manager knows deans from the ICAM or from the European conference or regional conferences.
Or for the webinar, from the webinar. Now they know you, so
or
you're going to have
from
a
the
lot of emails.
webinar. Yeah. From yeah, maybe. And and sometimes it's really, if I know this person, from other circumstances, it's maybe those deans, or I could be a role model. Let's say a role model. That's might be helpful. Yeah.
Perfect. We have a question from Matt, and I think Matt is German as well, and coming from a German institution. So his question is, how can accreditation help in future-proofing a business school, especially in Germany?
Sorry, it can help?
How can accreditation help in future-proofing a business school? For the future of the business school. So like, you know, the impact of the accreditation on the future. If I understand properly the question.
Yeah, that's, let's, assuming that was the background of the question. I think especially on the German market, we have a decreasing number of applicants. Some of the schools cannot fill their programs, and if you have this not this logo AACSB or EFMD or EQUIS or whatever, but if you learn how to make use out of these standards to progress, to improve as an institution, it helps you in the competitive environment of the school. We could, if it comes to rankings, it improves, and if it comes to internal processes, you know, sometimes schools and universities are discussing internally, I don't know, for 2, 3, 4 years about the whole about one topic, one issue, and yeah, if you have, if you make use out of the possibility to have a strategic planning, to track key performance indicators or performance indicators that you see as fast as possible, that you have some problems here and there, and let's take our example, a slight decrease of incoming students, number of incoming students. Yeah, you are alerted immediately, and you can react. So I would say that's a good thing to be able to survive on the German market.
The mentor of your AACSB accreditation was a French dean, if I remember properly.
No, it was no.
Wasn't it Thierry Grange, your mentor?
No, it was not Thierry.
Oh no, Thierry was the chair of the peer review.
He was on the team. Yeah.
Sorry. So Thierry Grange, that you know, one of the things that he always mentioned is the fact that accreditation is usually one of the first moments where a higher education institution, or a business school in this case, have to start looking at themselves to produce reports and to produce standardized reports, because usually you're going to have the financial reports but nothing else. So you know you have the incomes and and that's it. Yeah. So do you agree with that? And have you seen the difference by being accredited, and how that has changed your view on your school, the reporting in your school? Like, have that modified a lot for you?
Oh yes, definitely. That's exactly what I mean by these key performance indicators. You learn so much about your own institution when you are reporting this self-evaluation report or the continuous improvement review report, and you see the development of time series. That's definitely the case. I would say for Germany, that's definitely the case, because German accreditation, for German accreditation, we don't need all this time series. We don't need these key performance indicators. And yeah, definitely, you learn a lot about your own institution, and it supports you to react and to lead in the right way.
So there is one thing that we forgot to mention in the intro, is that, Thomas, you're also working at the moment on your EFMD accreditation. So you are at the early stage, but you are working on the
very early, very
in one
early
of the
stage,
accreditation.
yeah.
But you're working there as well. So I have a question from Amisan, and she's asking, how do we hold the deans to the updated standards? So there is modification of standards, there is standards as evolving. Well,
yeah.
One has just released their latest standard, but EQUIS and EFMD is actually changing their standards on a yearly basis with some change. How do you make sure that those change go up to the dean and that the dean is aware of that?
Yeah, that's definitely the point. We were accredited under the 2003 standards. Then the first re-accreditation was 13 standards.
2013,
and,
yeah.
And then now we will have this. I hope we will have it. They're still on. It's still on vote. The 2020 standard. So for each accreditation step, we've seen different standards. The good thing is that for ACSB, because I don't know all these the history of EFMD, but for ACSB, the standards are improving, and already the step from 2003 to 2013 was a great and tremendous step, and now I would say it's again a great improvement of the standards, but still, yeah, the question is how to inform your dean about the new standards. So again, they were presented at dean's conferences, at the last dean's conference in Nashville. They were presented at the ICAM again. And yeah, that's probably, yeah, the most important way. Bring them to the conferences.
Yeah. And maybe to enhance the EFMD side. So the standards are also evolving on a year-to-year basis. There's modification on the standards, and there is a lot of different seminars, accreditation seminar, the XXL seminar are really good to be able to have those updates. And you also have the quality service team at EFMD that is really happy to answer about those different questions. So there's a lot of different material that can help in that direction.
I would like to add one thing is, it's great to learn about the standards when you have to apply them on the other side, so on the peer review team side. So, and that's the good thing. If you're a peer review team member, you have to go through the standards if it comes to the initial accreditation, but even if it comes to continuous improvement review, you have to you have to know the standards to evaluate the school you're visiting. So if you convince your dean, let's take the opportunity, do this introduction seminar, and then you can visit some schools all over the world, and maybe it's a nice trip. But at the end, you have to write a short report, and within this team, you have two other deans, and yeah, you're discussing the spirit of standards, and maybe that's even a better way than a seminar. Seminar is good, it's fine, but apply the standards with the school you're visiting. It's so helpful. It's so helpful.
It's funny because I have a question from Marine from the Netherlands.
I know.
Thomas
Hi,
is
Marine.
very engaged with Thomas is very engaged with accreditation organization. Why should deans get involved as volunteer? And why is it good for institution to have such engaged dean, as it takes so much of their time?
A good question. No, it's because if you visit other schools and see how problems are solved there, how they manage to, I don't know, to increase the number of PRJs, or how they are running AOL, how they are, how they develop their mission, their vision, what are future topics for this institution. You learn so much you can apply for your institution. That's why I really love to be engaged in these institutions like EFMT and AACSB, and especially if it comes to committee or working for committees, you see so many solutions within different schools. So it's really amazing.
So you're using that as a laboratory to get best practice and learn how other schools are doing it.
Great. Yeah, that's it.
But you can do it only once you have been accredited. So in order to do that, you first have to be accredited.
To be PRT member or member on a peer review team, yeah, you have to be accredited. That's true. Yeah, that's true.
So to go back, because you were talking about when you are a peer reviewer, what is your impression when you arrive in a school? How do you judge this school? How do you look at these schools? Because like we talked already about you being able to know if the dean is involved, not really involved. It's like, how do you judge a school, and how do you judge the organization around quality of the school when you arrive as an external coming for a peer review visit or as a mentor?
Yeah, these roles are different. So mentor is really you have a school who wants to improve, who wants to be challenged, yeah, the function of a mentor is to teach a little bit what the spirit of the standards, and to support the school to find their own solutions, given the, I don't know, 15 or in future 9 standards, to convince or to help to convince the initial accreditation committee to accept the ISER or the self-evaluation report, and to be ready for accreditation. This is really a sort of, hey, I'm a little bit your friend. I want to that you are you will be accredited in a given amount of time. If your peer review team, let's go for a chair, you normally have so-called pre-visits. It would be really good to have it 1 year prior to the visit, to discuss maybe open points before writing down this CIR or the self-evaluation report. And here again, you try to support the school. When it comes to now, we are there as a peer review team, and it is initial accreditation. You have to go through standards by standards check list.
Yeah, no, that's clear. But if you're coming in, like, and you have to analyze if your peer, the dean in front of you, know the standards or not.
Okay.
How do you act? How do you react to that? And because, you know, you have some deans, and I have plenty of examples from people that are actually listening in at the moment. And there are schools that are triple crown that have been accredited for 20 years. So the initial accreditation was done by a guy that is retired. Now you have a guy who say, look, we haven't been accredited for 20 years. Like, it's a walk in the park. It's a quality process. You manage. I don't need to be involved. There is a lot of schools that have people, that have deans that are behaving like that. So how do you see it from an external perspective? And if you had any tip on how to make them realize the potential and how to get involved.
Yeah, that's yeah, now I got the point. Yeah, yes, it's really embarrassing if you have a dean sitting in front of you, and if you ask a question about strategy, about what are your SA criteria, and he or she has no clue about the own institution. That's really embarrassing. And yeah, sometimes it can be, or very often you have some, if it is a school, you know, 20 years in business of accreditation, they have great quality managers, and very often within these visits, they're stepping in and try to answer the dean, which is really, you know, if it comes to strategy, a nightmare for the dean and for the whole group. Yeah, but that's the way it is. You have to tell him, hey, that's your job. It's your job to present the strategy. Is your job to know the SA criteria and the shortcomings, discipline-based or program-based. Even if you have a vice dean for that, yeah, you have to know that. It's your job.
Yeah, but a lot of, you know, in the different session we did in the past few weeks, a lot of the question were, look, we are accreditation directors, we are quality directors, we are accreditation manager. We don't have a seat at the board level. We don't have a seat with top management. How do we push that? Because the problem is you're a guy that is involved. Like I know you, I know your team. I know that you have like daily meeting with the different person in charge of your accreditation process. So it's easy for you to have this flow of data. I know you know other schools that don't have that. And how would you recommend them to push this information to their dean? Like this is, I think, something that could be really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good point, because it's really difficult story. I think first of all, if you have this situation as a quality manager, you see that something is going wrong, that you have no access to I don't know, the research committee, and the research committee is discussing issues without any relation to the faculty qualification criteria, things like that. Yeah, that's really an issue, and I don't have a good and a 100% solution for that, other than what I've mentioned before. Bring them to conferences, that they learn that it is important to know the standards, and that the quality manager preparing all this faculty qualification data are those who will provide you with the necessary information to guide the school. Yeah, I totally understand, but this is really an internal problem. I don't see any general solution for that. How to overcome this problem without convincing the dean that this is really necessary.
I was a few months ago at a meeting at ANZQUAN, which is Australia New Zealand Quality Accreditation Network, and one of the topics they were discussing was the fact that more and more the accreditation office becomes the hub of data, and so the deans see them as hub of data. So if the dean wants a set of data, instead of going to research, instead of going to this department, they go to accreditation because they know the data for accreditation has been cleansed, has been readily available, and like that he or she can use this data. Is it something that you do as well? Because that was.
Yeah, I had a. This is a very good point. I was once on a peer review team, and there was a colleague, a dean from the EMEA area, and he told me, Thomas, I just asked some data from our administration 1 week, and the same data 2 weeks later, and I compared these two data, and I thought these data are from two different schools, and indeed the role of the quality manager is to clean the data, to prepare the data, to have them available, and what we've done, maybe this can be a solution. What we are doing, we have a sort of academic scorecard. So we use a specific set of time series prepared by the quality manager to run the school, and we argue about these key performance indicators within all faculty councils, in all professor meetings. So yeah, this is definitely true. Quality management is more and more also data generating, data cleaning, and help of interpretation.
Yeah, but if you think about it, the problem they had, sorry, Thomas, is that accreditation is a receptacle of those data, but they're not the one that's supposed to use them on a day-to-day basis. So the biggest problem when in the discussion that was having is to say, look, the research office push data because we need research data. The data also come from the student office. So we have data from everywhere, but they just send us data. They don't make the work of cleansing the data. So they just send us the data. We do the cleaning. And then when they need clean data, they come back to us. So that was their main concern, was to say, look, we are doing the job of everybody else by cleansing the data. And the dean is then asking us the data. So the other office know in a way that they just push us the wrong data and the cleansing will be done by us. So it's more and more the case because data is key in an accreditation process. But how do you work around those data? Like is the research office in charge of their own data? Is this office in charge of that, in order to make sure that everybody is responsible for their own part of the pot?
No, it's definitely like you told me that everything is collected by the quality management department and cleaned by the quality management department, but it's guided by one vice dean, you know him, Harald, supporting this team, letting them know for what purpose we do need this data. It's not, you know, collecting data to do nothing with this data. It makes no sense. So it's really it makes sense to involve the Vice Dean as well, the Vice Dean for research, for the research data, the Vice Dean for academic affairs, for the student life cycle data, and the Dean for let's say international affairs, the incoming, outgoing numbers and whatever. Yeah, it's up to the Vice Dean. It's in my institution. It's like this to discuss for what purpose do we need that, and why we are doing that. And if we have time series and we have no need for any, let's say, purpose, so we can kill that time series. We can kill that key performance indicator, because if there's no need, don't start to collect that data.
Question from the audience. Isabel is asking a question. When accreditation bodies are changing standard, but those standards are not the one you're doing under for your visit, should you know those standards as well for the discussion during the visit? For instance, should we expect questions such as, what do you think of the new standards?
Isabel, you mean the new ACSB standards?
Any standards.
In general. Yeah. You were again interrupted. Can you please?
Sorry.
The last.
So imagine the standards are changing, Thomas. So the standards change. The standards will be changed as of 2021, but the accreditation visit of Isabel is in November of 2020. So she's still on the old standards, but could she be waiting to hear some questions about new standards, about how would she have done things on the new standards? Like, what is your opinion on that?
I think the thing is, it depends on the team you have. I think the difference between the 2013 standards and the 2020 standards are not as big as it was the change between 2003 and 13. So it's a little bit more or less rearranged within the standards. Some ratios are less strict. We have this PA plus SP plus
SA. No, but the question, don't go too much in details, Thomas. Just like the question, because she added a small comment to her question, is like, she was just wondering how much she need to prepare her dean and director general on the new standards. Like, should she push this information, or should she just like lay back, say, they know the actual standards, we are looking at the Excel standards, let's not confuse them more by giving them the new standards as well.
I understand. Okay, I understand. Yeah, he or she should know that there is a new standard 9 with a big emphasis on engagement and innovation and impact. So it was already the case before, but now it's a new standard. But I think he or she should know that this is probably, or this is the new a new aspect in the new accreditation, and he or she should know something about what's our impact, where we are innovative, where we are engaged, and what is our concept to measure that. I would say yes, at least a little bit. He should know, or she should know. But again, it depends on the team.
Okay.
And maybe in the previous,
as a dean and an accreditation,
in the previous,
as a dean and an accreditation expert, what would be your advice to one of your peer dean as why is it interesting to be accredited beyond the logo? Like,
again, professional processes, strategic planning, sometimes new culture in the institution, you have to think about your impact. Let's take a German example, University of Applied Science. So we have this practice impact. It's easy to sell that, but to think about where is our impact on applied science. This is, yeah, something you probably only think about if it comes to, if you have to do it for accreditation. On the other way around, if it is a research university, you probably have a huge impact on research. But where is the impact on practice? You have to bring the institution to the situation. Think about yourself. Who do you want to be? Where do you want to be in 5 years? What is the way? What are the measures to fulfill the ideas or the goals you have? Yeah. So strategic thinking, not daily business.
One question that a lot of people ask is they always see accreditation as a cost.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned that accreditation has a value. What would be your advice to actually push this value? Because you just mentioned a few, but again and again, when we talk about accreditation, people tell you, well, it's expensive. You have the yearly fee, you have this, you have that. So there is a cost. But what is the real value and of entering this process? Because you mentioned a few, but since we are at the end of our discussion today, I just wanted to maybe do a small wrap up on the different things, because you were mentioning internationalization and being able to have like international partner and being judged by this partner. So what do you think?
Okay, yeah, cost. That's definitely an issue. Wherever I talk about international accreditation or even accreditation in general, you always have this discussion about costs. What we've done, we found a sponsor for our initial accreditation. It was a company from our region, and we told them that we have this idea, and for this and that reason, so international partners, we want to be more international. We want to be, let's say, a leading university of applied science in Germany. And for this, we are seeking international accreditation. And this guy was so amazed by this idea that he told us, okay, well, for the next 5 years, we will pay you all these trips, all these seminars you need. And so maybe you can find someone supporting you, especially for this project. This is maybe could be a good solution for the cost side. Again, accreditation is not only logo, and if it is only logo, it makes no sense to do it. Maybe for some schools, it's they don't see the benefit, but I would say the benefit in the different areas I already mentioned, in strategic planning, exchange partners, getting better faculty, getting better students, at least on master's level, get a better reputation and with an impact on ranking. These are all values. You know, you pay so much money for advertising, and I don't know, in a German newspaper, Die Zeit, to be to advertise your programs, but international accreditation is probably more helpful because if you're a good school, yeah, this will impact the students to come to your institution. And yeah, you on the other side, you pay less than you probably pay when you don't have this international accreditation.
My last question, Thomas, is what was the value for this company to sponsor you? What was the reason for it, and what did they gain from it?
It was this person was is known as someone that who wants to pay a certain or grant a certain amount of his personal income. It's not the company income, it's his personal income to institutions. It can be university, it can be other things. And we are in a region close to Stuttgart, but we are not Stuttgart. We are from Pforzheim, and convincing people to come to Pforzheim, to work in Pforzheim. It's much more difficult to convince someone, please come to Berlin or to Munich or to Hamburg. And he told me, Thomas, I'm someone who is coming from your institution, values the city of Pforzheim. It's a great city, he knows or she knows. And to keep her or him in Pforzheim, it's much easier than someone from, I don't know, studying in Munich or Berlin. So it was sort of regional or support from a regional company.
Thank you, Thomas. Sorry, we have passed our deadline. So thank you so much, Thomas, for your time today. We're looking forward to the last session of the series on Wednesday on how to value accreditation. So I think the conclusion of Thomas was a really good one. We have 3 experts talking about that. So it's going to be a really enriching session. So we're looking forward. Thank you again, Thomas, and have a lovely afternoon, day, or night if you're in Australia. Thank you so much.
Yeah.